And we're back with season 3 of the Elite Show, the mob, the mafia, and the man. If you like what we're putting out, hit the like and subscribe button. John has changed his life. He always says, yes, he did.
Yes, I did.
If you like what you're hearing, also go to johnelite.com to find out everything about John Elite, including his books, the baseball bats, the cigars, the special limited edition John Elite sunglasses by Private Eyewear. So sitting to my left is the man himself. Across from me, Michael Dowd of the famed 7-5. And we're here with a special guest, Alan Krawitz. Thank you so much for coming.
How are you? Good to be here.
Hey, Al, how are you?
Hang it in.
Uh-oh. He's already starting.
I'm ready to zoom right in.
He's ready to go.
So you've been a freelance reporter now for 30 years.
Yeah, just about.
That's crazy.
Yeah, writing about everything under the sun, pretty much.
Wait a minute. I heard you say, before we came on air, I heard him say 1992. Now, what was the most epic event in 1992?
I graduated high school. Oh, that's not?
Alan?
92?
Yeah.
I think it had something to do with the 7-5.
I think so.
The city was torn apart by a scandal in the...
7-5.
There you go.
The House of Cards crumbled in 92?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was 1992. May 5th, I believe, or 6th. May 6th.
Yes.
Right after Cinco de Mayo celebration.
But actually, you can say that was the best day in your life. And I'll tell you why, because then the anxiety was able to come off you.
Well, I mean, Alan and I have had a couple of communications since then. And Alan, just give us a little brief history on your career.
I started out writing for a bunch of Queens papers, probably early 90s. Was covering everything, running from, starting out with school boards, community stuff. I did some crime.
I did some crime, too.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Not after 92, I didn't.
No. And at the same time, early back in 2000, I was actually a spokesperson with the NYPD, with DCPI. And that was interesting.
What's for DCPI, for what people don't know?
Deputy Commissioner of Public Information.
So that's a real, hold on now. Stop right there. That's a pretty good title.
It is.
I mean, did
Sounds
it come with some credentials?
Oh, no, I wasn't I worked in the office on the 13th floor of One Police Plaza. I was one of the many spokespeople, although I was really, the other cops did not like me at all. And I know that because they gave me a real hard time because I was a civilian. Everyone else in there was basically, they were all, rumor had it that cops that messed up elsewhere in the department got thrown in there, and none of them were happy about it. That's all I'm going to say there.
Well, that's interesting. Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So you were the only actual civilian employee
Yes.
in that department?
Yep. This is Mayor Giuliani was, he was in office at the time.
When did that end?
It ended actually because the mayor, from what I heard, he had a lot of control over who was in that department. And ultimately he communicated to the commissioner that he only wanted that department staffed by cops. He did not want any civilians in there. And I only ended up staying there for about a year because Giuliani had so much control in those days. He did not, he had to reallocate the budget for my position, which he declined to do. So my sergeant came over and was like, look, they're not going to, goes, unless you want to go take the test and become a cop, you're going to have to go elsewhere.
Well, I just find
that's how it happened.
I find that rather interesting, being a member of the department, that was like a power move, a political. First of all, how'd you get the position? That's the key question.
It was a combination. Interesting story behind that as well. It was kind of dumb luck. I was working at a small PR firm in Chelsea, working on all kinds of consumer, like Oreos was one of my big accounts, doing getting them PR. I got tired of it. And
Hold on. Did he just say PR? This
Yes,
may
I
be the
did.
guy. Go ahead.
Public relations.
Oh, I thought it was Puerto Rico.
This may be our guy. Well, either way.
Hey.
Either way, it's good. So go ahead. I'm
very
sorry.
PC.
I'm an interrupter in chief. Go ahead.
Sure.
He's the cutter.
Right.
We need the wiffle ball back,
So I was working there. I just got tired of it. And I thought I had a friend of mine who was on the job, and he let me know. He goes, you know what? He goes, the Deputy Commissioner of Public Info, they're like looking for people because they were very understaffed. He goes, I don't know if they're going to hire a civilian, but why don't you go check it out? I called up, I think personnel, and she goes, yeah, we have an opening actually. She goes, send your resume.
Incredible.
I sent it. I went through I went to the
Background?
the background check
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
But it took them like 9 months. And I'm like, and I'm still at this job that I couldn't stand by this point. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I kept calling and calling. You know how much bureaucracy there is in the department. And they kept saying, oh, the job, the title hasn't been authorized by the vacancy, approved by the Vacancy Control Board. And I said, who controls
insane.
the Vacancy Control Board? She goes, that's the mayor. And I'm like, okay. So a week later, I said, wait a minute, Giuliani does a regular talk show on WABC at the time. And I'm like, I'm going to freaking try and get through. So that's what I did. I called up the show and I got through to the mayor. And I told him, I said, my tale of woe. I said, look, I'm supposed to start in DCPI. It's been like 9 months. And he's like, well, did you pass all the background checks? Does everything check out? He goes, you're not a bad guy, are you? I said, no. I think I'm pretty clean. And he's like, all right. He goes, hang on the line. I'm going to have my assistant look into this for you. And literally 2 days later, his assistant called me. He's like, okay, Alan, you report to One Police Plaza, next week. And I started. So that's how I got the job.
Yeah.
Sometimes all it takes is just to get that little squeaky wheel greased, you know?
Exactly. And then I was there for like a year, and a lot of crazy stuff went on there in my short time.
What year did you leave there? Is
It was about a few months before 9/11, actually.
Oh,
3,
you're
4
better off.
months.
Thank God you weren't there during that. That had to be a nightmare for people.
Oh, I can imagine. But yeah, while I was there, a couple of times I think I got in trouble. Someone from WCBS, Rich Lamb, I don't know if anyone
Yeah, I
remembers.
know
He was
the
a
name.
reporter, Rich Lamb, long time. He called me with a dopey story. I think a sheep got loose on the FDR Drive. And he's like, oh, he goes, I want you to, because I'm just reading him off of the 61 from what we had.
Right.
And so I read it to him. He recorded it, and they played it on the radio.
Oh, Jesus
and that pissed off the commissioner. She's like, who told you had authorization? And I went into the office. I'm like, well, no one told me I didn't have authorization, so I did it.
Right.
And she's like, I don't want anyone. She goes, I don't even want cops talking to the media directly like that. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. So I was already on the shitty list
Jesus.
right there.
I have to bet. It's one thing
And
about
then-
it's something about getting police jobs.
Yeah. And
You're
then,
always in jeopardy.
And then while I was, this is the weirdest thing that happened while I was there. So I used to work out at a real hardcore gym in Ridgewood. It was called Zinn's, and then it was called Power Factory.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
It was on the 4th floor of an old knitting mill, and I was a regular there. Most of the guys were ex-cons who were there. They were like
you
right
go.
out of
Those
Rikers.
I knew it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I worked out there for at least 4 or 5 years. So one day I'm working up in 1PP. I'm on the job, and I see a 61 that there was a shooting at my gym. I'm like, what? The girl who worked at the front desk, who I knew very well, Barbara Perez, was shot and killed by her scumbag ex-boyfriend, who was a corrections officer.
Wow.
And they were, I think the last name was like Clavin. No, I forget the guy's name, but they were trying to get him. They knew he did it. They just couldn't find the gun. And eventually someone came forward and they actually located the weapon. They arrested him. It took like 10 years for the guy to get arrested.
Wow.
But it happened really literally. I saw the 61 come in.
Right.
And I was like talking to the media about it. So that was crazy.
out of all these reporting jobs that you had, where would you fit that in the list of importance or most fun? Was your police work there a good experience?
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was super interesting just to work in the department and just working with all seasoned veterans. Like there were a bunch of, we had a couple of sergeants, with some deputy inspectors in there. A lot of them were at the tail end of their career. and I could see that there was a growing bitterness. Like when you see the finish line in sight, they were all like, "I got to get the fuck off this job." Literally,
they're going like this.
And they're doing a lot of OT, and they were just looking forward to the pension. And a lot of them, not everyone.
Right.
Some of them said, "No, the job is okay," but they're like, "It's changing, and we want to get out. We've had it." So that was a lot of it.
Well, that's police work in general.
Yeah.
When that finish line starts to become apparent, man, nobody wants you. You want me to sharpen a pencil? I'm out of here. I'm retiring.
That's it.
They're tired. But so, where else? What other places have you worked for reporting? I know you're freelance now.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at Newsday for a lot of years, up until probably I was writing regularly until 2006, 2007 as a freelancer, mainly for neighborhood stuff. A lot of community stuff, but on 9/11, I went around talking to first responders and all that, talking to people about the whole Muslim, how they felt about the terrorists, et cetera. But I did a lot of stuff for them, and then after that, I worked for the Daily News, and right now I've been working for the Long Island Press and AM New York for the past 4 years, doing things very different. I write a lot about restaurants on the island. I just interviewed today. I interviewed Geraldo Rivera 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Because he's involved with a really interesting autism charity, and I interviewed him about basically about his career.
How'd that go? I interviewed with him also.
Did you
He
really?
interviewed me, yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a couple of years.
I was just happy because as a journalist, he's such a big name.
Right.
He was, Geraldo's almost 82, so I was just happy.
Was he 80 already?
He's just about 78.
Yeah.
So
a
he's
young
up
wife.
there. So it was a phone interview. He gave me 20 minutes. I could tell he just wanted to get off the phone with
Right,
me. But look, I did the best job I could, and I thanked him. But he was just I guess, and I just figured, hey, at his age, he's probably just I don't give a shit, just whatever.
Right.
I'm doing-
once he started having that apathetic attitude, you should have just went, "Hey, did you ever find anything in those vaults?"
Then he would have hung up on me. That would have been the end of the interview.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a big believer in you give what you get. If he's not giving you the respect, well, guess what? He don't get the respect.
But you know what? This is just me. I was a little irritated. I did a good job in the story. My editor loved it. He's like, "Oh, you did a kick-ass job." He goes, "Thanks for just getting him to agree," because he was a little. I guess he's not that easy to work with some of the other people. I did the story, put it out, ran in AM New York. Editor loved it. I tweeted out on my social media. I thought at least maybe I follow him. I thought maybe he would see the story and at least like it or retweet it. Nothing. And I texted him because he gave me his cell phone number. I said, "Hey, thanks so much for the interview. I really appreciate it." And I sent him the link. Nothing. Not even hey.
but he's been getting a hard time on
Nothing.
He's been getting a hard time on Fox News
Oh, is that it?
and Hannity. They've been breaking his chops,
Maybe that's it.
So he's really tied up with that. He's on the five.
hammer him
He's
on
on the
that, yeah.
five. They
Yeah, he's
hammer
on
him
the
all the
five.
time. So yeah.
Yeah, but it just like I said, my wife was like, "Oh, she was all into it," and she's like, "Did he like your?" This? I said, "No." I said, "You know what? I know he saw it because I sent it directly to his cell phone.
Right.
He had to see it, so whatever."
Yeah.
It is
Well,
what it
he'll
is.
hear about it from us. I have a Long Island. So the Long Island Press.
Yeah.
They're no longer in paper form, right?
No, they are. No, the press is back in a pretty big way.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a glossy, like a broadsheet almost, and they have a pretty good presence online. And the same company that owns LI Press also owns AM New York and a whole bunch of papers in the city. Downtown Express. They're actually Schnepp's Media. They own a lot. now.
See, because I have a Long Island Press connection, a very deep connection. One of the first stories that I ever read in a newspaper was the Long Island Press, and they wrote it about my father.
Really?
And we were on the front page of the Long Island Press, the whole family. My father made a rescue in the fire department in the 60s in Bushwick, and the Long Island Press came to the house to interview my father and to discuss whatever the fire situation was. We were young kids. I was probably 8 or 9. So you had 7 of us, and maybe my sister might not have been born yet. So there was 6 of us, and And then I went on to, and the people that watch this show may not have known this, I went on to deliver the Long Island Press.
Wow.
For 4 years. So you and I are intrinsically,
Wow.
some kind of natural connection we have here.
I'm going to leave you guys there at this point. I got a surprise for everybody. We'll announce it. I got to go to that next appointment, that meeting. I'm going to send Mike in.
I'm in the middle of telling my
And-
Long Island Press
And
story.
I finally cut the cutter. So it was very nice having you. We'll see you again when I'm back.
I can't
Mike's
believe
going
you
to step in my position, and we'll make that announcement. I got some big news for everybody.
Oh, that's
coming
that big
soon.
one we were talking about.
biggie?
earlier, right? Oh,
The
yeah,
big
yeah,
fish?
Yeah.
All right, well, for that, I'll let you go.
I'm going to bring him in.
Excuse you.
I'll bring him in.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Mike, when'd you get here?
I was sitting out in the green room, so when you go back there, sniff your coffee before you drink it, right?
Oh, thank you. You know, he's always screwing around with stuff.
So hold on, wait. Now, were you able to hear us in the green room?
Yeah.
Okay, so you heard, so I was telling a Long Island Press story.
You started delivering papers for Long Island
Yeah,
Press.
you go. Yeah. And I had a great route, and there was two people that paid me twice a week. They didn't know that it was. They thought you.
Free paper.
They thought they paid twice a week, so I collected twice a week. Every time I saw them, I was collecting.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you had the newspaper beat reporters because they knew the kids were going to be delivering them, or maybe in the old days, kids hollering out on the street and stuff. Those days are almost gone. I mean, the days of actual hard copy papers,
Yeah.
they're going away.
Oh, yeah.
How has that affected your current job? Because it's not the job you started.
Yeah, no, definitely not. When I started, really, hard copy papers were really everyone, and I used to work in the city, everyone was reading them. Now, because you got the millennials, and, you don't see many millennials reading papers.
Well,
at
the
all.
internet's ruined the
The
newspaper
internet,
business.
Yeah, well,
But-
it has for a while.
Those formative years then when you were delivering the Long Island Press,
Right.
all right, that was something special to you because, number one, you were in that with your father.
Right.
Right. And those days are going away.
Right.
It's a shame, too.
And it paid my bills. I was my first savings account was derived from delivering the paper you're working for today, and the scar under my eye over here that everyone comments on now and then when they get to see it up close. Yeah, you see it? Can you see it? German Shepherd attacked me while delivering the Long Island Press. Yeah, when I was 16 years old. Now, the connection is the Long Island Press was known for its shape, right? It was very long. And most people used it and rolled it up. And today it's sacrilege. They would spank their dog instead of using their hand with the Long Island Press. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was known for that. People didn't stop this is the facts. People didn't stop the delivery of the Long Island Press because they used the newspaper to spank their dog because the dog was out of hand. So here I am delivering this newspaper that the dog gets beat with every fucking day. Okay? So what do you think he's thinking about when I show up to collect on every Friday? Okay?
It'd be like growing up in an Italian household and a belt salesman comes to your house.
Smooth salesman.
Something similar. Right. Sure enough, after probably 4 years of delivering to these people, and they tipped me well, but not to my sad end, is I got mauled by their German Shepherd attack dog, which would eventually be my last day of delivering the Long Island Press. But I mean, a severe injury. My eye, what do you call it? The tear ducts were ripped open, and the dog was chewing me, like my legs, and just chewing me up. And thankfully, the neighbor who was a firefighter knew my father, knew the whole family well, because it was a neighborhood back then. I lived in Brentwood. Brentwood was a tight knit neighborhood back then. And whether it was tight or not, I was getting mauled, and someone saved me. Off to the hospital I went, and I got stitched up. But what would come full circle is I'd get a call. Was it you who called me, or reached out to me, or texted me?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I think on Twitter, actually.
Twitter.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and Alan reaches out to me, and with a story that brought us full circle with the press was Serpico.
Yes.
Right. So what happened
Yeah.
with this? Tell our audience, and you guys chime in.
Serpico, I don't know if anyone was following the story, but he finally was awarded the physical medal. And the police department had, I don't know if they had a ceremony for him, but they gave him the medal finally. And they gave him a plaque.
What was it called? The Combat Cross or Medal of Honor?
It was
What
either
was it?
Combat Cross or
Yeah,
Medal
it
of
might have
Honor,
been
I remember that.
a combat cross.
Well, he
and
got shot, so it might have been the Medal of Honor.
And what I think is really funny, I don't know if anyone, because I was doing this story about him getting the medal, and that it's been 50 years since he testified about the corruption, and a couple of news outlets, I think it was New York One, got it wrong about why he received the medal. They misinterpreted. They said that he was given the medal for testifying. And Serpico went crazy on Twitter. He goes, "This is dead wrong," and he made them correct it because he's like, the police basically, like, the department would never give me a medal for testifying. No. They didn't want me testifying. Right. So they finally corrected it. But that's why I did a story about why he got the medal, why it took so long, and kind of like what it says about police departments across the country. And I included a few other guys.
Well, is this the one where he mentions Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're once again
synonymous.
Yeah. He mentioned Mike in the course of talking. Someone else, I think, prompted him. He didn't answer me. I wanted to talk to him, but he was already cranky. He did a lot of interviews. Probably he was, it was all over. AP picked it up. But he basically said, something to the effect that, Michael Dowd was the worst cop in New York City history, very derisive towards him. And
I might have earned a lot of the accolades, but to say the worst is even a stretch. From your perspective, you've been around the police world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've read some reports.
There's been quite a few scandals. And not only that, just some of the people that I worked with there, I knew that they were up to nonsense. When I was even in DCPI, but if you think I was going to talk to anyone about anything, I was hanging on by a thread as it was.
Mike, I guess it's safe to say Serpico's not going to show up when you finally get your medal?
Well, so here's the deal. I think if he got a medal, according to News One, who actually
New York One,
which was actually their first broadcast ever, was the Mullen Commission. That was their first broadcast
I didn't know
ever.
that.
And who was the Mullen Commission?
You should get a journalism award.
You did
I should get a journalism and a Medal of Honor if he got a Medal of Honor for testifying.
You really did a good job. I watched that testimony for you. That
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was really good. You looked much better back then.
I was a pretty guy, wasn't I? I was handsome.
I was a little worried about you going to prison looking that way.
I was jacked, though. I was built like this guy back then. Believe I didn't know it wasn't a one-way street.
There was a thin guy on that show, so I didn't even place the face.
I agree, though. I have to say, when you were telling me when we had our conversation on the phone, and it's really true, you didn't have to do that. You already jammed up. You already were. Right. You did your time. You didn't have to help them to try and root out further corruption, but you did it, and people just seem to gloss over that. You really could have just walked away and said, "F you."
Yeah.
You guys aren't helping me out. Why should I help you out with anything?
So you made a statement before, which was so accurate in my case. They didn't want him to testify, Serpico. Serpico said it was known they didn't want him to testify, but he did it.
Right.
Well, what do you think they wanted me to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think they wanted me to do? They wanted me to shut the fuck up and not tell them, to not expose their shortcomings. And so this is my little soapbox for a minute. In doing so, first of all, when they came to me, I told them no. The first two times. The third time I agreed because, you know what? I wanted to show, one, the truth. Two, I wanted to make it safe for cops to be able to give up guys like me so that the job would grow from there. Now, that's a difficult thing because what you're actually doing is people are going to get exposed at some point if they don't stop. And as we know, the dirty 30 went down, right? The whole 30th precinct went down, the midnight shift, the whole shift. So, hello, it's don't take it from me. Just take your own weight, So all that exposure and people, and you may have known this because you've been around us for years, not touching, but right around us, and all the disparaging things that have been said about me. And by the way, most of it earned. I take credit for it.
Right.
But one of the things is people forget is what he said. That day when I decided to do that, I thought I was on the road to redemption.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we talk about second chances. Mike and I talk about second chances all the time. So
and John, and then Mike.
John. With the second chance portion of that and what your testimony in there, it's a first step. It's a first step to admitting. You could have sat there and hid behind this. I've been framed. This is bullshit. I shouldn't be doing this. But you have to own it. You have to own the problem before you can even start to fix
Yeah,
it.
we talk about it all the time. The first time we met met Mike.
Oh yeah,
He ran up to us and said, "How you doing, Mike Dowd, dirtiest cop in New York City history."
Yeah,
he owned up to it. You know.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, here I am at a police function, and what am I going to do?
Right.
Try to
Say hi, I'm Mike.
Right. Right.
try to ingratiate himself into the crowd. You know.
but that's an important part. Now, how many people that you interview are willing to take that step to address that 900-pound gorilla in the room?
Yeah. No, not many.
Not many.
No, definitely not.
He's one of them.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
Well, and part of that is because I spent a lot of time in prison, and everywhere I went, people would want to know who I was, because and this is a racial thing. White guys want to know white guys, and they want to know who they're around. When you're on the front page of the Daily News, let me assure you, the whole country knows you by face, and especially in prison, because what do inmates do all day? They read the newspapers.
They have nothing to do.
They have nothing to do. They know who you are when you walk in, and you still carry yourself the way you were. And you guys all know, people wherever you guys go. Oh, two cops just came in, even though you don't have your radio and your vest on, right?
They know.
Yeah.
It's an
So
aura.
to your point is when you and I started to discuss these things, did you get any flack for speaking?
I got a flack, just like I got pushback from the editor initially, that they ended up screwing me in the process too, because some unrelated nonsense. But he didn't want me to include your comments, and I literally said back to him, I said honestly, I think they're really good, and I think it adds some depth and context to the story, because here. Otherwise, I'm just regurgitating okay, Serpico got his medal finally. They finally recognized what he did. It took him 50 years to do it, but they finally did. But here's a guy who you wouldn't ordinarily think would even want to give Serpico his props, because he was directly on the other side of this coin. And you were like, look, you admitted to me, and you said, I'm not a big fan of his, and he's not a big fan of mine. But in the end, I think he's a good cop because he did what he was supposed to do. He saw wrongdoing going on, and he wanted to expose it.
Well, have you ever seen that in anybody else you interviewed? And I'll give you a prime example. So Mike came on our show, and we were worried because a large portion of our audience is police. Mm-hmm. Mike and I have had conversations about this, like, hey, do you think we're going to get pushback? And we didn't. Thankfully, we didn't. It was all made up in our head. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you've interviewed people over the years where you're kind of like, I'm going to get some flack for this. I'm going to get some hate mail. Has that ever happened?
Not that I've seen direct, like people directing it to me specifically, but like there was a story, actually, I write for another a newswire that's kind of like national, called Zenger News. And I did a story about a year ago about the screwed up New York State parole system. And I did include in the story a guy who was paroled recently, like a year ago. And I think back in the 80s, he shot and killed a cop in a bar in Maspeth, Queens. But I talked to the guy, and, everything jived. I mean, I think, look, he spent almost 40-something years in prison. I think he's a different person now, and he realizes what he did. And I got a little bit of pushback. I remember when I sent in the story to the editors, they said to me, are you sure that you want to include this guy in his comments? Because there's some people that are, not going to like it, that you're including him. I mean, and I know I have a couple of sources that are some retired police officers, and some of them weren't too happy. They said, why are you giving this guy any more light? You should just let him, whatever. He's out, let him do it, let him be. And so I got a little bit of pushback.
Well, listen, isn't that almost what journalism is about?
Yeah.
You're going to get the good comments and bad comments, but they're buying that newspaper just because they heard about the article and they want to read it to be pissed off about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we were talking about comments on the shows.
Yeah, I mean,
you get the bad comments, you get the good comments. It's all part of the business.
It's almost painful to hear this because, first of all, I feel for the police officers' family that lost,
absolutely,
that lost their guy, that
absolutely.
lost their right. Who wouldn't, right?
I'm sure
Right.
they're pissed. At,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
But at the
definitely.
same time, do you want to tell half a story?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It doesn't have much value if you tell half the story.
That's
you
right.
have to get it all.
Sometimes
then
you
it
got to
becomes-
put your Buddha on.
It becomes a fluff piece then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know,
And honestly, and I, I honestly, in my personal life, I'm very pro police. I have a lot of friends that are still on the job now, patrolling in the worst areas. I have a friend of
Yeah.
mine who was in, I think it's probably, he's in along Pitkin Avenue. That's 75,
75,
right?
73, yeah.
That's his regular beat.
Yeah.
He's a white guy,
Yeah.
so it's not an easy task.
Right.
And I'm very pro police. So when this guy came up, and I was like debating even with myself, do I want to include him in the story? But then I read about him, and then I actually reached out. He was working at some volunteer agency upstate New York, helping to kind of get other guys that came off parole to reintegrate them into society, get them jobs, and make sure that they don't screw up. And once I started talking to him, I realized, I said, you know what? This guy went into jail when he was like 17 years
Yeah,
old.
right, yeah.
He's now practically my age. He's like 55, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not the same person. It's not the same person.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people don't believe in rehabilitation. I mean, not for everyone, but I think in some cases, some people can sort of turn their life around and realize what they did and atone for it and try and do the right thing with whatever life they have left.
At some point, even with the officers' families, and I'm very sympathetic to the officers' families who lost their family member.
But one question, quick: was he on duty or off duty?
He was off duty.
Okay.
He was in the bar drinking with his friends, but this guy and some friends came in and they tried to pull like a quick robbery. So I think he pulled his, he had his off-duty weapon on him, and I don't know. It was
Okay,
a
so
mess.
that's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
it makes a difference. It's still we lost a.
he was off-duty at
But
the
he
time.
wasn't in uniform, so
No.
the guy knowingly went after a police officer.
Exactly.
Now I don't know the facts in the middle there. Maybe
Yeah.
he did know at some point the guy was a cop and he killed him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But the important part of that is that officer's family at some point have to realize, in order for them to fully be able to heal from that loss, they're going to need to hear this guy's side of the story.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
if this guy's,
Well, they might not want to hear it because
No,
they're
they
still
might not
hurting.
want
they don't want to hear it. You never want to hear the
Right.
worst things. In
Well,
your
we
life.
went through this with you, right?
Oh yeah,
Right? With
absolutely.
the guy who shot at you.
The guy, right? So it took me a long time, and I was a police officer, and there was a domestic dispute, and I was almost hit in the head with a bullet.
Wow.
So the guy who did it is he's actually a friend of John's. Well, he's not. John knows him.
The
This
cousin is a friend of John.
Yeah, Anthony Vocatoro was his name, and there's some connection, and eventually it's going to happen where I'm going to go face to face with him. I need that as much as probably he needs that, because it took a long time for me to realize that he wasn't shooting at me; he was shooting at a cop. Okay,
Right.
which doesn't make it better, but
No.
but I
Wasn't
need that to
personal.
heal
That
myself.
it wasn't personal.
It wasn't personal.
Sort of. It was just like you represented authority.
Shooting at the uniform.
Right, shooting at the
Yeah.
uniform.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite type of piece to report on?
I mean, honestly, I really enjoy like features about, people in the community doing something to kind of help people. Because, I mean, like I told you my background, I work for the MTA full time, but I've been doing this on the side for as long as I've been working there. And I want to feel like if I'm continue, it's not for the money. You're not getting freelance journalists are not getting rich. It's not charity. I get paid for it, but it's not like, I can, we go to Vegas now.
Yeah.
But I said I I feel like I'm contributing something, and when I bring attention to people that are really trying to do something positive and make things better, I feel really good about it. So it's like there's a couple of people that are that I recently interviewed. I just interviewed a surgeon who is involved in helping veterans. He's involved in fitting them with prosthetics, things like that. Like it kind of makes me feel good when I do stories like that.
Because you're raising these people's
Exactly.
You're elevating the unsung heroes. Is that
Exactly.
Is that And that's
Yeah, this guy
that's
doesn't-
nice.
yeah,
That's nice.
exactly.
I fall into this trap. So when I read things, I love reading about Mike Dowd. I love reading about John Alite. All right, those are the things that you're reporting on that we should all be reading about.
Yeah,
but
but
instead,
not-
it's not the grab.
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not sexy.
Right.
Crime sells, sex sells,
Well,
drugs
look,
sell.
That's why all the eyeballs that are probably on this last guy that did the subway attack.
Yeah.
I mean, he got tons of press, and I there's a whole other. I don't even know if you want to touch this, but I read a piece from a journalist that reported on, like, he said, did you notice how the race of the subway shooter was barely mentioned
Right.
in most of the stories?
Right.
And I have to say, and I'm very impartial, they're right. A lot of journalists, the editors, they intentionally, sometimes if it was a white suspect, they like to put that up front and center.
Yeah.
Would you ever run into that in your career where we all know the media loves separation.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
not
absolutely.
a secret. It's not a
Right.
secret.
No.
Did you ever run into that from behind the scenes where there was a little bit of pressure to make it a little bit more sexy?
Yeah, a couple of times. I mean, there was a couple of stories I did where the editors were looking. They literally said to me, like, we need something a little more controversial. Is there anything more that you can dig up about this person to make it a little more, a little sexier?
more
Yeah.
sellable.
And I said, but I'm a journalist. I'm not telling. So you gotta watch what you're doing, because there are some journalists who have been, caught fabricating things. You can't do that.
And you lose credibility because
Yeah,
your name's
exactly.
behind everything you write.
Exactly. There's a few people that ruin their careers, and once you're caught doing that for any big name publication, if they nail you, making up facts, skewing facts, that's the other thing. You can skew facts to go one way or the other. That's not really journalism either. You're supposed to try and play it, down the middle, which is what I try to do.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite? Your favorite? There's going to be like my favorite love story, my favorite danger story, my favorite feel good story.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite investigative work that you've done? And have you done any investigative work? You uncovered something that maybe someone got a little pissed off at the end, but hey, it's the facts.
Lately, I've been writing, but this is not even related to police work. I mean, just like I've been writing about food for a website called Eat This, Not That.
Right.
And
Sounds sexy as hell.
yeah, well, believe it or not,
go a lot of different ways.
Believe it or not, a lot of people, they get a lot of eyeballs on them. So I think I just wrote some funny stuff about, like, a fast food restaurant like Burger King. They recently pulled salads off their menu. So believe it or not, that was like a scoop, and my editor was like thrilled. It's like, oh, no one else wrote about this yet. And I'm just like, and the company didn't want to admit it, I guess, because they don't want to be seen as like, okay, we're making it now impossible for you to have anything healthy
Yeah.
at a Burger King.
Right.
And they quietly pulled off all the salads from their menus nationally. And I noticed it, and I went to, I said, I can't confirm it because the company they're not responding to me because they probably don't want to put out any statement. So I went to enough restaurants, and I was talking to the managers, and I'm like, wow, this is like actual food investigation. And all the
This is
employees,
sexy as hell.
all
Was
the
it the
employees,
shredded lettuce that they didn't like?
all the employees, they confirmed. They said, oh yeah, we're not selling salads anymore. That's it. And I said, well, how come no one in corporate wants to admit? No, they said we're not going to say anything. We're taking them all off the menu, and we're not going to say anything to anyone about it. So,
As far as
funny.
corporate move, it's a good corporate move.
Oh, yeah,
You're not
yeah.
going to Burger King for a
Right.
salad.
No,
think
no,
that-
not
Let me
at
tell
all.
you something. That's pretty deep. I mean, you went into salads. Now it wasn't tossing. You weren't. They didn't,
Tossing
they
salad.
didn't toss the salads around, did they? I mean, toss what? They tossed the salads off,
Yeah, sure.
off the menu.
I hear you.
Sure.
They tossed them right off the menu.
Toss the
Those
salad.
damn
Burger King
salads.
tossed their salad.
They're right off the menu.
Is there any?
Uncovered by Long Island's greatest.
Well, so what was the name of that publication?
It's a website called Eat This Not That.
Eat This, Not That.
Yeah.
The Salad Tosser.
Yeah. The
That's what it
salad
is.
tosser.
Big Burger King with the crown on his head.
Right,
Amazing.
exactly.
These
So
look funny.
yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff to write about. I know you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. It's,
Well, I guess where Mike was going, is there any hard hitting crime investigation that you got into?
I didn't do a ton of actual like criminal investigation. I mean, a lot of it, some of the stuff that I investigated had to do with like, I reported on a lot of stuff, real estate things going on in down in the village, like shady landlords trying to screw people over by basically not if they're having an issue with someone, they'll cut off their hot water, heat like that, reporting on the complaints, and then things like that.
Slumlords.
Yeah, kind of like a lot of slumlords. That was fairly recent. There was a couple of buildings in the city where I reported on slumlords.
Do you take your do you get call-ins to these leads that you find interest in, or is it something that you uncover and then go look?
It's
So in other
kind of a
words,
little
so
bit
if I
of
call you
each.
up and say this guy's bothering me,
Well, I get a lot of that. I get a lot of
this guy's bothering me. If you go do an investigation, you're going to find this, and then we can blow him up, and I'll be happy.
If a guy's bothering you, I think you're going to call John before you call him.
right.
But maybe this is the new way.
You
It seems to be with social media,
social
right?
Yeah,
media is
yeah.
the new way of punking people out. But if
Yeah.
I have a hookup in the press, like Alan here, I
Right.
could maybe get someone really
Well,
good.
the problem is because I've been writing for so long, I'm on a lot of media lists, so my address and my contact info is out there, and even on Twitter. So I'll get sometimes random people, saying that there's a conspiracy, someone's trying to kill me. But I mean, I don't
Kill
know.
you?
No,
Or the guy who's calling you up,
He's
okay.
like, I need you to check into this. And I'd be like, half the time I'm like, but the way it's written, it just looks very, wacky. Like, I don't know if this is someone that should be institutionalized or.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah.
So
How do
say
you
I were
know?
to contact you through Twitter.
Right.
Hey, my father was so and so, and I know where Jimmy Hoffa is buried.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
How do you delineate between total nutcase and true lead?
It's hard. You have to actually do really old-fashioned investigative work. You actually have to go meet them. You have to actually get out of from behind the computer, go meet them somewhere, get some of their information, confirm some things. I mean, some stories I've done, like back in the day, I did a bunch of stories about, also related to the 7.5, but for smaller papers, prostitution. Plus, there was some.
Not Jimmy Burke.
No, not Jimmy Burke, but that's a whole other issue with him.
Did you
I
dance
mean,
around
like,
that at all?
I would love to write about that whole thing, as I'm convinced that he is way wrapped up in the whole Gilgo thing.
Yeah, a
I
lot of
think he
people
is.
are, but
Not Jimmy Burke, the gangster.
no.
No.
The police chief.
The former Suffolk
Yeah.
County Police Chief,
now-
Jimmy Burke,
now, did
who
you-
was out of prison.
Did you know? Were you aware that he was a cop in the 7.5 as a rookie? His first 2
No,
or 3
I
years.
wasn't.
That's
Really?
what I'm told. I don't want to be. So I could be wrong, but I'm
Really?
told he started out in like the late '80s when I was bounced out of
Possible.
there already. Then he
That's the-
started out in the 7.5, and
I didn't know.
And there was a lot of things that was said about some of the guys that when I left, because they all broke down after I left, because
Yeah.
they pulled the linchpin out. They pulled the linchpin out of holding the dike together when I left there.
But that was the guy that Pete Fioriello was talking about, Jimmy Burke.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Police chief of Suffolk County. Yes.
That he's trying to look into, I think.
Yeah, well, he had a different disagreement with him because they ended up locking up his son-in-law.
Son-in-law.
Yeah. Pete
Right.
Fiorello's son-in-law was a cop in Suffolk County, and they targeted him and went after him for some reason, and I don't remember the exact reasons right now. But yeah, Pete, we got to have Pete back on. He's really
There's lots
Well,
of
like, yeah, but
that's-
some of the, I think it was, I'm trying to remember the paper. It might have been Metro New York because
Right.
there was a
Metro's-
bunch of merger. Metro now merged with AM New York. But I think I wrote a piece probably like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was about a shelter in Brooklyn, about one of the big, I think it was the Help Women's Shelter. I forget what area. It's like now it's an area they're trying to gentrify everything up, but the shelter's still there. And I interviewed this girl who was, she was, staying at the shelter, and she was talking about the terrible conditions. It was a lot of it was connected to DHS and Department of Homeless Services. But she was telling me stuff. She was like, "You have no idea what goes on with some of the cops in Brooklyn." And I said, "What do you mean?" And then she started going on. She's like, "A lot of the cops said, will not pick up some of the girls because if they do them favors, they'll look the other way." She was like telling me that there was a lot of stuff.
God damn it! I'm always in the wrong place
And
at the wrong time.
I didn't include everything.
You got caught too early.
But I included some of her because she just gave me her, her street name, and I included that in the story. And I included some of the comments that she said about like that some of the cops were picking up some of the girls and they would just get favors and let them go and they wouldn't make the bus. So there was a lot of
That's
stuff.
sad.
This was
Sad that
still
you're not
5
there.
years ago.
This was only 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago when, but now,
She's still,
I don't know if there's a street prostitution. I don't think there's much left. I think it's all online.
It's all online for most.
right?
That's what I hear.
For the most part.
Do you ever think about writing? You take one of your most juicy stories that you feel really connected to. Do you ever think about writing a book about it?
Yeah, it's crossed my mind. Yeah,
You just haven't taken the leap.
I
yet?
haven't taken it. Yeah, I'm too
Have you
busy,
qualified for any of those Pulitzer things? I don't know. Maybe
a couple of it. I wrote
Any of
actually.
those.
I got an award for actually Long Island Press about a year ago. I wrote about the Hempstead School District, about a lot of violence, a lot of gangs in Hempstead, and I wrote.
Did they lock up half the
I wrote
school board over there or
a
something?
long series. I wrote about 10 different articles, and that actually won a Folio Award, and that's out there because it's just the Hempstead School District's a mess. Like they're one step away from being like taken over by the state because of the low graduation scores,
The corruption,
constant
isn't it? They're
violence,
stealing all the money.
corruption,
Yeah.
the superintendents. I mean, it was just a lot of crap going on. So yeah, those are some of the stories that
that you've cut.
that I've covered
Yeah.
that I think I would be really, what I like doing and do more of.
Is there any story down through your career that after it came out, you regretted doing a story?
No, not
Like
really.
anybody that got really got a bad name because of your story that you actually uncovered?
No, honestly, I really can't think of it because I'm pretty careful. Like I know there are some reporters that have stories like that really mess people up, but a lot of times that's because sometimes they didn't do a real careful job in the reporting process. And I've always been very detail oriented.
So what do you think of Mike McAleary?
Mike McAleary?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I see a beef brewing in
Uh-oh.
that
Why?
mind over there.
What issue do you have with him?
He's a fucking liar.
Why?
He's never written 3 words in a row that were correct. They were accurate.
He lied at hello.
He lies at hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Why specifically? What?
Oh no,
what do you remember?
he makes up stories and
Really?
then writes about them, and then he's got a bloody pulpit, which was the Post, the
Right.
Daily News, and the Newsday. He ran 3 papers while my case was going on. He was in all 3 papers because he went from one to the next, and they kept buying him out. Whoever had him last, and then what he did, and he's done it in the past. There's some truth to every story, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wrote stories about me. Okay. In that year, now that I was arrested, 1992 to 1994, there was over 360 articles written about me
Wow.
in the 3 New York papers. Okay? So he propagated most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And then one article, as you might know from the press world, one article feeds someone else to write another article. And then, because they're late to the game, they want to get something else. And each is built off an original exaggeration. He had me down for 9 murders. Now, I didn't do 9.
Wow.
That's a good thing, by the
But
way.
he had me down for 9.
Damn.
I might have done none. But he had listed me down for 9 murders. He showed where the bodies were. And what happened was the New York Channel 11, Channel 5, all the local news went out to each site where I buried the bodies. And they found some here and they found some there. And they're still looking for me for these murders. And this is 100% fabrication. And you know what the news article quotes at the
How did you
end?
get away with that?
Because how do you disparage a piece of shit? Or you understand? Like, you can say what you want about a guy because he's basically already been disparaged, right?
You're an easy target.
An easy target. So, I mean, here I am getting ready for a trial of my life, which I'm going to lose, right? And now he's pinning 9 murders on me in the press. And in the article, one of the detectives from the 7-5 goes, it's a fishing expedition. You throw it out, you pull it in the water, you see what comes
See what
back.
bites.
Yeah. So this is what journalism became from him, and he won almost every prize you can get as a writer. And 80% of what he wrote was fabricated. In fact, so much so that my family, Mr. McAleary, I know you're in heaven with that problem that you died from. My family went to his hospital. If anybody knows McAleary, most New Yorkers know of him. He had a very bad car accident in 1993 to 4 where he punctured his lungs. He almost died. So while in hospital, my family went to his bedside and dropped off a bouquet of flowers and said, from the Dowds, in his bedroom, in his fucking hospital room. Right. There was a cop guarding the room. Now, how do you get in past the cop guarding the room? And why is the cop guarding the room? The cop's guarding the room because he's under arrest for DWI, all right? And now he's touch and go.
He didn't write about that, did he?
No.
That's my point. So my brothers drop off some flowers there. Of course, they're New York City firemen, so the cop lets the firemen drop off flowers from the Dowds. He wakes up, the first article out of the box after he comes out of his comatose and everything. Bang, slamming me, slamming my brothers, slamming the whole Dowd family. I think I have a little bit of grind with the guy because, don't get me wrong, once you're a cop and you're arrested for what I'm arrested for, you're basically free meat.
It's easy to kick someone when they're down.
The only way I could see maybe him getting away is like there used to be a lot of these papers used to print just unattributed sources, like they would say I still don't like that. According to even a police source, I don't like doing that because it always seems fit. Because I can make up something, I can just
Your integrity is everything.
Right, exactly. I mean, unless my editor asks me, Alan, who's your police source? Where exactly did you get this, fact that you're saying that Michael Dowd was responsible for 3 bodies? Who did you get that from? Because someone should call you on it. You shouldn't be allowed to just skate by and just say, "Well, I have my sources. I can't give anything up."
Yeah. So this is what happens in loose journalism. But clearly, Alan's been quite responsible in his journalism. He takes it serious.
I do.
In the police world, we're always very skeptical of media.
Absolutely.
Always. Because
absolutely.
of the lack of integrity of so many. It's kind of like one bad cop ruins the whole bunch.
Yep.
One bad reporter does the same thing.
That's why I don't hold anything against when I worked in DCPI. They gave me a hard time, but I realized it's because they were very, very skeptical.
Jaded.
Just a lot of people were just not on the up and up that they were dealing with. A lot of the sergeants were just like, come by, like I was one of the writers. So sometimes you just drop off at 61 and be like, all right, we need a press release for this. We gotta get this out. And then I would write it up and I would give it to him afterward and he'd be like, well, wait. Who told you could release this information? And I'm like, well, it's in the 61. So, and no one said anything. Don't use this. He goes, well, give me that. Just because I was the one giving it to him. And he was afraid I'm going to leak extra info that I'm not supposed to the other. I wasn't going to do that. I'm like, whatever I'm supposed to. That's it.
And the $64 question in this room, I want to know because
$64,000.
Right.
I'll give you $64 right
That's
now.
what I want to know. Is how much do you get paid a word?
Oh, that varies.
Give me an idea, because I could say I could throw a lot of shit around.
Yeah.
Alan, we're nearing the end here. And how can our audience find you? Let's say they got that hot tip on where
Yeah,
Hoffa's
maybe.
buried.
I mean, the guy's got integrity. I want him to write my story.
I always like it.
Well,
Integrity.
I'm on Twitter. It's just at Alan Krawitz, AlanKrawitz. It's probably the easiest way. Or people can just email me. I mean, my email address is out there, just alankrawitz@yahoo.com. I'm always looking for tips.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming here and discussing everything that you talked about. I, for one, appreciate that you have integrity, because not everybody has integrity.
Come on now.
No. Well, everything they've written about you, Mike, is true. That's the only time these people have had integrity.
Yes. Everything else, yeah. Otherwise, it's been no integrity.
Mike, let me ask you, my wife wants to watch the 7-5, but we looked for it on Netflix.
Yeah, they
and
took it down.
They took it off.
Yes.
Where is it
I think it's on
available now?
Hulu and Prime, but some of them, most of them are pay sites
Yeah,
right
you have
now.
to pay now.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then.
it's
It used to
tough.
be-
Yeah, so I don't have a copy. Otherwise, I'd give it to you for
Yeah, I
coming.
don't know.
Listen,
We'll
it's
find
pay
it.
sites because someone's getting a cut of it.
If I could get a cut of it,
Yeah.
yeah. If I got a cut of it, I wouldn't be sitting here sweating my ass off in New
Yeah, I was
Jersey.
gonna say.
In New Jersey.
Well, you can always find Mike at the Mike Dowd on Instagram.
That's right.
Mike Failace at dented_ace on Instagram. I'm at Real Kevin Donaldson. Of course, follow John at True John Elite. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Elite Show, the Mob, the Mafia, and the Man. Don't forget to tune in. We got great things on the way.